Authorized police records. Factual video evidence. Raw enforcement. This is Bodycam incident reports.
Get your hands out of your pockets! Drop it! Now!
It's dog bag, officer. I'm walking my dog.
Don't argue with me! I said drop it and get on the ground!
I've done nothing wrong. This is a public park.
Last warning, get down, now!
The morning dew was still fresh on the grass of Oak Haven Park in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a Tuesday, barely 6:45 a.m. The birds were singing, the city was waking up, and Officer Kyle Miller was screaming at the top of his lungs, his hand hovering over the grip of his service weapon. The man he was screaming at was Dr. Marcus Thorne. He was 54 years old, wearing a crisp charcoal jogging suit, standing next to a trembling golden-colored labradoodle named Barnaby. Marcus wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a suspect. He was the principal of Oak Haven High School, a pillar of the community with a Ph.D. in education and a shelf full of Educator of the Year awards. He had simply been walking his dog before school started. In the next 15 minutes, Officer Miller, a 23-year-old rookie with less than 6 months on the force and a head full of tactical training but zero life experience, would make a series of catastrophic errors. He would mistake dignity for defiance. He would mistake a therapy dog for a weapon. And he would destroy his own career before the sun even fully rose over the tree line. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments below. And if you believe that authority requires accountability, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because this story is going to make your blood boil. You need to see how this ends. To understand how a morning walk turned into a national headline, you have to understand Dr. Marcus Thorne. Marcus stood 6'2" with a build that retained the athleticism of his younger days playing college basketball. But his presence wasn't about size. It was about gravity. He carried himself with the calm, assured energy of a man who had spent 30 years mentoring teenagers, calming angry parents, and negotiating with school boards. He was the kind of man who could silence a cafeteria of 500 rowdy students just by raising a single eyebrow. That Tuesday morning was supposed to be a moment of peace. The school district was voting on a new budget that evening, and Marcus had been up until 2:00 a.m. reviewing proposals. He needed the fresh air. He clipped the leash onto Barnaby, a certified therapy dog who spent his days in the school library, letting anxious freshmen pet him, and headed to the park across the street from his home. The park was empty save for a few joggers in the distance. Marcus walked along the paved path, listening to a jazz podcast in one earbud, letting Barnaby sniff the oak trees. It was his sanctuary. He wasn't Principal Thorne here, he was just Marcus, a black man enjoying the sunrise in the neighborhood he had lived in for 20 years. He stepped off the path for a moment. Barnaby needed to do his business, and there was a secluded patch of grass near the duck pond. Marcus had his waste bags ready in his pocket. He was a stickler for rules. He taught his students that character is what you do when no one is watching. He picked up after his dog tied the bag and turned to head back to the path. That was when the patrol car jumped the curb. Officer Kyle Miller had joined the force straight out of the academy. He was what the older veterans called a badge-heavy rookie. He had watched too many movies, consumed too much tactical content online, and viewed every interaction with the public as a potential ambush. He was eager. Too eager. He wanted the big bust. He wanted to be the guy who found the felony in a traffic stop. He wanted to prove he wasn't just a kid in a uniform. He had been patrolling the perimeter of the park when he saw Marcus. What Kyle saw wasn't a principal walking a therapy dog. His brain, wired for threat detection and clouded by implicit bias, saw a large male subject lurking near the bushes in the early morning hours. He saw a hood pulled up against the morning chill and assumed concealment. He saw a man stepping off the path and assumed he was casing the maintenance shed nearby. Kyle didn't wave. He didn't roll down the window to ask a question. He hit the accelerator, hopped the curb onto the grass, tearing up the turf, and slammed on his brakes 10 feet from Marcus. He jumped out of the car before it had even fully settled on its suspension. "Hey, you stay right there." Marcus flinched. The sudden arrival of the car had startled Barnaby, who let out a low, nervous, "Woof!" Marcus reached down to soothe the dog, placing a hand on Barnaby's head. "Officer, Marcus said, his voice calm, the same voice he used to de-escalate fights in the hallway. "Is there a problem?" I said, "Stay right there. Get your hand out of your pocket." Marcus froze. He realized he was holding the waste bag in his left hand. "It's a dog bag, officer. I'm just cleaning up after my dog." Drop it now." Marcus dropped the bag. He slowly raised his hands to chest level, palms open. He knew the drill. Every black man in America knew the drill regardless of his degrees or his tax bracket. You move slow. You speak clearly. You don't give them an excuse. "Okay," Marcus said. "My hands are visible. My name is Dr. Marcus Thorne. I live in the blue house across the street. I'm just walking my dog." Kyle Miller didn't hear Dr. Thorne. He didn't hear, "I live across the street." He heard a suspect talking back. He moved closer, his hand unsnapping the retention strap on his holster. "I didn't ask for your life story. I asked what you're doing back here. This park is closed from dusk till dawn." "It's 6:45, officer. Dawn was 30 minutes ago. The park is open." "Don't get smart with me," Kyle snapped. The rookie was running on adrenaline now. He felt like he was losing control of the encounter because the suspect wasn't cowering. The suspect was correcting him, and to Kyle's insecure ego, correction felt like resistance. "I need ID, now." "I don't carry my wallet when I jog," Marcus said, reasonable. "My house is right there. My wife is on the porch. You can see her." "Failure to identify," Kyle muttered, reciting a code he didn't fully understand. "That's an arrestable offense. Turn around." "Officer, please listen," Marcus said, keeping his hands up. "I am not failing to identify. I am telling you who I am. In this state, I am not required to carry physical identification while walking a dog. I have committed no crime. I am asking you to lower your voice. You are scaring the dog." Barnaby, sensing the tension, barked again, a loud, deep bark. Kyle stepped back, his hand gripping his gun. "Control the animal. Call it off or I will put it down." "He is a therapy dog," Marcus shouted, his calm finally cracking. "He is harmless. Do not draw your weapon. Last warning. Get on the ground, face down, hands behind your back." Quick question for the audience. Have you ever tried to reason with someone who has already decided you are the enemy? It's a terrifying feeling. Type yes in the comments if you've ever been in a situation where logic didn't matter. Marcus Thorne had a choice. He could get on the ground in the wet mud in his work clothes and submit to the humiliation of a rookie cop on a power trip. Or he could stand his ground on his constitutional rights. Marcus chose dignity. "I am not getting on the ground," Marcus said firmly. "I have done nothing wrong. I am going to take my dog and I am going to walk back to my house. You are welcome to follow me and speak to my wife if you need to verify my identity." Marcus turned slowly to walk away. That was the moment Kyle Miller decided to ruin his life. "He's fleeing!" Kyle yelled to no one as his body cam recorded the empty park. Kyle lunged forward. He didn't go for Marcus's arm. He tackled him from behind. 190 pounds of rookie cop slammed into the 54-year-old principal. They hit the wet grass hard. Marcus gasped as the air left his lungs. His glasses flew off his face. Barnaby went frantic, barking and circling, trying to figure out why his owner was being attacked. "Stop fighting! Stop resisting!" Kyle screamed, using the standard lines to justify the force for the recording. "I'm not fighting." Marcus wheezed, his face pressed into the dirt. Kyle jammed his knee into the small of Marcus's back. He grabbed Marcus's left arm and wrenched it up toward his neck. A sharp pop echoed Marcus's rotator cuff, already stiff from age, tearing under the torque. Marcus cried out in pain. "My shoulder! You're breaking my shoulder!" "You should have thought about that before you resisted," Kyle panted. He got one handcuff on. Barnaby, usually the gentlest soul on earth, nipped at Kyle's boot, trying to protect Marcus. Kyle spun around, drawing his taser with his free hand. "Get back!" "No, don't hurt him," Marcus pleaded from the ground. "Barnaby, sit." Even in the chaos, the dog listened to Marcus. Barnaby sat whining, confused, watching his master being crushed into the earth. Kyle holstered the taser and finished cuffing Marcus. He pulled the cuffs tight. Way too tight. The metal bit into Marcus's wrists. "You are under arrest for trespassing, failure to identify, and resisting a peace officer," Kyle announced, breathless. He keyed his radio. Dispatch 1 in custody. Code 4. Need animal control for a vicious dog. No animal control. Marcus said, his voice trembling with pain and rage. My wife, she's right there. On the porch of the blue house across the street, Sarah Thorne had come out with her coffee. She saw the flashing lights. She saw the figure on the ground. She saw the golden dog sitting nearby. She dropped her mug. It shattered on the steps. She ran across the street in her bathrobe, barefoot. Marcus. Kyle stood up, placing a hand on his chest to block her. Ma'am, stay back. This is an active crime scene. That is my husband, Sarah screamed. That is Dr. Marcus Thorne. What are you doing to him? He's under arrest, ma'am. He attacked me. Marcus lifted his head from the grass mud covering his cheek. Sarah, get Barnaby. Just get Barnaby. He attacked you. Sarah looked at the rookie, then at her husband lying face down in the dirt. He's a high school principal. He's walking his dog. Are you insane? Ma'am, step back or you'll be joining him. By now, a crowd was forming. It was 7:00 a.m. The early buses were passing. A group of high school seniors, cross-country runners on their morning training loop, stopped dead in their tracks. They recognized the man on the ground. Hey! One of the students, a kid named Leo, yelled out. That's Principal Thorne. Get your phones out, another student said. Kyle Miller looked up and saw 4 teenagers holding up iPhones. The red recording lights were on. He felt a flicker of doubt, a tiny scratch in his armor of self-righteousness. Principal. Back up! Kyle shouted at the kids. Interference with a police investigation is a crime. We're on public property, Leo said, holding his phone steady. He was a debate team captain. He knew his rights. We're 10 feet back. We aren't interfering. Why is Principal Thorne in handcuffs? He resisted, Kyle said, but his voice lacked the conviction it had a minute ago. He hauled Marcus to his feet. Marcus groaned, his shoulder hanging at a sickening angle. Officer, Marcus said, looking Kyle dead in the eye. My shoulder's dislocated. I need medical attention, and I need your badge number. You'll get it at the station, Kyle snapped. He shoved Marcus toward the patrol car. Get in. As they drove away, leaving Sarah sobbing in the park, clutching Barnaby's leash, Kyle felt a surge of triumph. He had won. He had controlled the threat. He had made the arrest. He had no idea that he had just arrested the one man in the city you do not want to wrongfully arrest. The drive to the precinct took 20 minutes. Marcus sat in the back, the hard plastic seat, digging into his injury. He closed his eyes and breathed. He visualized his calendar. First period assembly, budget meeting, lunch with the superintendent. All gone. He shifted his focus. Survival. He needed to survive the booking process. Then he would destroy this officer's career not with violence but with the law. When they walked into the station, the atmosphere changed instantly. The desk sergeant was a man named Thomas O'Malley. He was 50 years old, weary and waiting for retirement. He had known Marcus for 15 years. O'Malley's son had been a troubled kid on the verge of dropping out until Principal Thorne had personally mentored him. O'Malley credited Marcus with saving his son's life. O'Malley looked up from his paperwork as Kyle marched Marcus in handcuffed and muddy. O'Malley dropped his pen. He stood up slowly. Miller, O'Malley said, his voice dangerously quiet. What the hell is this? Suspect arrested for trespassing in Oak Haven Park and resisting arrest, Kyle announced proudly. Refused ID, acting erratic, uncooperative. O'Malley walked around the desk. He didn't look at Kyle. He looked at Marcus. Dr. Thorne. Hello, Sergeant O'Malley, Marcus said politely. I apologize for my appearance. Miller, O'Malley said, turning to the rookie. Take those cuffs off, now. Kyle blinked. Sarge, he resisted. He's a suspect. Protocol says... I don't give a damn about protocol right now. O'Malley roared, his face turning red. Do you know who this is? This is the principal of Oak Haven High. He is the most respected educator in this city. You arrested him for walking his dog. He didn't have ID, Kyle stammered. The confidence was draining out of him like water from a cracked bucket. He was lurking in the bushes. I was cleaning up after my dog, Marcus clarified. And then Officer Miller tackled me and dislocated my shoulder. O'Malley looked at Marcus's shoulder. He saw the way it hung. He saw the mud on the suit. He looked back at Kyle and his eyes were full of pity and disgust. Unlock him, O'Malley ordered. Then go to the captain's office and sit there. Don't speak to anyone, don't touch your radio. Just sit. Kyle uncuffed Marcus. His hands were shaking. Sarge, I followed training. I identified a threat. A principal with a doodle is not a threat, Miller. Get out of my face. As soon as the cuffs were off, O'Malley called for a medic. Dr. Thorne, I am so sorry. We're going to get you to the hospital. I'm calling the captain down here right now. Thank you, Thomas, Marcus said, rubbing his wrists. But before I go to the hospital, I want to file a formal complaint, and I want to make sure the footage from that young officer's body camera is preserved, because I have a feeling it's going to be very educational. By 10:00 a.m., the video taken by the student Leo was on Twitter. By 12:00 p.m., it had 2 million views. By 2:00 p.m., the hashtag Justice for Dr. Thorne was trending #1 in the United States. The video was damning. It showed a respected older man face down in the dirt, a puppy crying nearby, and a young aggressive officer screaming about resistance while twisting the arm of a man who was clearly not fighting back. But the real bombshell dropped 3 days later when the body camera footage was released. Marcus Thorne's lawyer, a shark named Alicia Vance, who happened to be one of Marcus's former history students, had petitioned for the immediate release of the footage in the interest of public transparency. The city, sensing a massive lawsuit, agreed, hoping to get ahead of the narrative. It backfired. The footage showed everything. It showed the empty park. It showed Marcus calmly standing with a waste bag. It showed Kyle Miller driving over the curb like a maniac. It showed Marcus politely identifying himself. And it showed Kyle Miller escalating, interrupting, and finally attacking a man solely because his ego couldn't handle being corrected. The internal affairs investigation was led by Captain Elena Rodriguez. She was tough fare and had zero tolerance for cowboy policing. She brought Kyle Miller into the interrogation room. Kyle was still trying to defend himself. He had his union rep with him. I perceived a threat, Kyle said, his voice tight. He fit the description of a suspicious person. What description? Rodriguez asked, sliding a paper across the table. There were no calls for service in that area, Miller. Dispatch logs show nothing. You initiated this contact. Why? He was wearing a hood. He was hiding. He was wearing a jogging suit. It was 50 degrees, and he was standing in an open field under a streetlight. Rodriguez played the video on the monitor. Look at this Miller. Look at his body language. Is that a combat stance? He refused to identify. He told you his name. He pointed to his house. He told you who he was. You chose not to believe him. Why? Kyle was silent. I'll tell you why, Rodriguez said, leaning in. Because you saw a black man in a nice neighborhood and decided he didn't belong. You decided he was a criminal before you even put the car in park. And when he proved he was intelligent and articulate, you felt threatened. You felt small. So you used your badge to make yourself feel big. I was just doing my job, Kyle whispered. No, Rodriguez said. You were breaking the law. Unlawful detention, excessive force, false arrest, battery. The report from Internal Affairs was scathing. It detailed 14 violations of department policy in a 6-minute encounter. It noted that Officer Miller had instigated a confrontation where none existed and escalated to physical violence without justification. The recommendation was immediate termination. But the story didn't end with a firing. Marcus Thorne sued. He didn't sue because he wanted money. He sued because he wanted change. The civil trial was a spectacle. Officer Kyle Miller took the stand. Under cross-examination by Alicia Vance, he crumbled. Officer Miller, Vance asked, projecting the image of Marcus on the screen, bruised arm in a sling. At what point in this encounter did Dr. Thorne verbally threaten you? He didn't verbally threaten me. At what point did he strike you? He didn't. At what point did he attempt to flee? He turned to walk away. Walking away from a consensual encounter is not fleeing, officer. Did you have reasonable suspicion that a crime had been committed? I thought he was trespassing in a public park at sunrise. I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake, officer, Vance said, cold as ice. You made a choice. You chose to view this man as a target instead of a citizen. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They awarded Dr. Marcus Thorne $1.2 million in damages. But the settlement terms were what really mattered. The city agreed to a mandatory duty to intervene policy. They agreed to overhaul their de-escalation training, and they agreed that no rookie officer would be allowed on solo patrol until they had completed 1 full year of mentorship with a senior officer. 6 months after the incident, Dr. Marcus Thorne returned to Oak Haven High School. His shoulder had required surgery and months of painful rehab. He still couldn't lift his arm above his head fully. He called an assembly in the gymnasium. 500 students sat in silence. Marcus walked to the podium. Barnaby was with him, trotting happily on a leash. "Good morning," Marcus said. His voice was raspy but strong. "Good morning, Dr. Thorne," the students roared back. "Some of you saw what happened to me," Marcus began. "Some of you filmed it, and I want to thank you for that, because the truth is powerful, but only if it is seen." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces, black, white, brown, Asian. "I spent 30 years teaching you about justice. I taught you that the system works if you follow the rules. And then one morning I followed all the rules and the system tried to break me." The room was pin-drop silent. "Officer Miller," Marcus continued, "was a young man, not much older than some of you. He had power, but he lacked wisdom. He had authority, but he lacked empathy. He saw a stereotype instead of a human being, and that mistake cost him his career. It cost the city over $1 million, and it cost me a piece of my peace of mind. But here is the lesson." Marcus leaned into the mic. "We did not fight him with fists. We fought him with the truth. We fought him with the law. We fought him with community. When I was on that ground, I felt alone. But when I looked up and saw my students standing there refusing to look away, I knew I was going to be okay." Marcus smiled. "Never look away. When you see injustice, do not look away. Record it. Speak it. Stand against it. That is your homework for the rest of your lives." The applause that followed was deafening. It shook the rafters. As for Kyle Miller, he was fired. His certification was revoked, meaning he could never be a police officer in the state of North Carolina again. He faced criminal charges for assault, eventually pleading down to a misdemeanor to avoid jail time, but he carries a permanent criminal record. He works now at a logistics center driving a forklift. It pays $18 an hour. He lives in a small apartment outside the city. Sometimes he sees videos of police misconduct on the news. He sees the comments. He sees the outrage. And sometimes late at night he watches the body cam footage of himself. He watches the moment he hopped the curb. He watches the moment he decided to scream instead of wave. He watches the moment he tackled an innocent man. He realizes now what he couldn't see then. He wasn't a hero. He was the villain in someone else's story. And he has the rest of his life to think about the difference between power and strength. Dr. Thorne is still the principal. He still walks Barnaby every morning, but now when patrol cars pass by, they slow down. The officers wave, and Dr. Thorne waves back, not because he trusts them implicitly, but because he knows they are watching him. And he knows that now they know he is watching them too. If this story made you feel something, if it made you think about the power of assumptions, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand your ground to protect your dignity? I'm reading every single comment. Stay safe, stay watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
This concludes our analysis. For ongoing access to verified footage, please like and subscribe. Thank you for following Bodycam Incident Reports.